in cities, and not all of them look like the ones we're familiar with. Today, I'll show you cities whose existence is hard to believe. Let's start with a city on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, near Lagos. There was once a tiny fishing village that is now technically part of Lagos, though it's effectively a separate city built on compressed waste landfill. Houses stand on stilts right above the water. It's one of the most unusual places in the world, plagued by extreme poverty, the largest water slums in existence. This isn't Venice. It looks like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. No one knows exactly how many people live here. Some say hundreds of thousands. Others believe it's much more. The official census showed a population of 250,000, but many believe these figures were underreported to hide the scale of the problem. Those seeing this place for the first time inevitably ask, how do the residents manage to survive? There's no place to grow food, no trees, nowhere to collect firewood. Life here is indeed very tough. These people survive in almost uninhabitable conditions. The birth rate is very high, with one man typically having 3 or 4 wives and children with each. One woman usually has 5 to 7 children. The country is very rich in natural resources, but these resources are sold abroad where they fetch higher prices than the poor local population can afford. The wealth is rarely shared with the people, which led to the growth of Lagos, Nigeria's capital. It's one of the fastest growing megacities in the world and ranks high in terms of slum size. These slums have their own name, Makoko, and unofficially many call it the Black Venice. With minimal numbers of teachers and police per capita, Nigerian slums are not an enviable place. The level of medical care isn't even worth mentioning. Add to this the dreadful, unsanitary conditions, and you'll understand why there are so few elderly people here. Looking closely, you'll see almost no old people in the area. The vast majority die at a relatively young age, many from HIV, malaria, hepatitis, meningitis, typhoid, intestinal infections, and other diseases. All of these go untreated, leaving only 5% of the slum population living to age 60. Once, when this was just a small fishing village, it supplied seafood to all of Lagos, but now the coastal water is heavily polluted and no longer suitable for fishing. Nevertheless, if you sail further from the city, you might catch some fish if you're lucky, which is why fishing remains the main occupation of the water slum residents. The rest sail to Lagos every day to earn a living. The water here emits a foul smell. A thick layer of filth accumulates around the stilts of hundreds of makeshift shanties. Statistics show that each floating house accommodates an average of 6 to 10 people. Migrant workers from all over West Africa flock here. Many residents don't even own their homes, but rent them. Wooden boats remain the main means of transportation for locals, with every family owning one. Children even come up with more creative ways to get around. Boats are also used for fishing and serve as trading posts, where women sell food, water, and household goods. There are even floating schools built from plastic barrels. Sometimes they're destroyed by storms, leaving children from certain areas without education for several years. Some parents can afford to send their children to other overcrowded floating schools in neighboring areas. The only way to get drinking water is to buy it from vendors who get it from wells. The government doesn't provide free water to Makoko residents. All waste and sewage go straight into the ocean, the same water where children splash and play. Yet even in such conditions, people find ways to entertain themselves. In homes with electricity, you can find LCD TVs and even video game consoles. There are barbershops and even a small cafe. These slums have one significant advantage: relatively low crime rates compared to the rest of Lagos. Additionally, there are no utility bills since there are simply no services. Nigerian authorities have repeatedly tried to demolish these slums, citing environmental concerns. But since the government didn't offer residents alternative housing, the demolition attempts led to rebellions, forcing the authorities to back down. Severe unemployment means children must get used to hard work from an early age. Almost a third of Nigerians are illiterate. Only a lucky few have the means to save up for a one-way ticket to Europe, where even the lowest-paid jobs would earn them many times more than at home. The 10-kilometer bridge in the background adds to the uniqueness of this place, while the modern buildings in the distance create a truly surreal picture. Let's move on to the next unusual city, Amedi. This city looks like it was created in Photoshop, but it's very real. Located in Iraqi Kurdistan, one glance tells you it's an ancient city, built when height provided strategic importance. Amedi sits on a flat mountaintop at an altitude of 1,400 meters. While living in houses on the cliff's edge might be scary, the windows offer breathtaking views of the valley. Founded in the 3rd millennium before Common Era, the city hasn't grown in size since then for obvious reasons. There's simply nowhere to expand. Buildings can't float in mid-air, so the city remains the same size as it was thousands of years ago, 1 kilometer long and 500 meters wide. For centuries, the only access was through a narrow stone-carved stairway, but now there's a proper road. The city was designed as an impregnable fortress, making it a coveted stronghold for various peoples and states in the region. Amedi is a diverse city where Muslims and Christians live together harmoniously. The population is around 8,000 to 11,000 people. The city has everything needed for modern life: shops, restaurants, police, and other services. However, due to space limitations preventing new construction, natives often have to move elsewhere. Locals mainly earn their living through agriculture and some tourism. The residents are working to get Amedi registered as a UNESCO World Heritage Site to attract more tourists. The next unusual city on our list is La Rinconada. It looks incredibly surreal, as if straight out of a movie. Many call this city lost in the mountains, hell on earth. Located in Peru on an extinct volcano, it's not just high above sea level, it ranks first in the world. It's the highest altitude city on planet Earth, more than 5 kilometers above sea level, comparable to having a city on Mount Elbrus. Just imagine the oxygen deprivation the local population experiences, given how thin the atmosphere is at such altitudes. This significantly impacts life expectancy. While oxygen deprivation is one of the main problems in this city, it's far from the only one. The climate here is harsh, with heavy rainfall in summer and dry winters, and the average annual temperature is just 1 degree Celsius. More than 30,000 people live in these inhospitable conditions. That was the count in 2009, and the population has grown significantly since then. But what draws people here? The answer is money. This is a mining city with rich gold deposits, and the gold rush has brought many workers who can earn up to $200 per month. While this might not sound like much, it's a decent salary for this region. People are willing to endure harsh working conditions, severe climate, and lack of comfort for it. The lack of proper government oversight has made mining chaotic. The city has no administration and anarchy prevails. Almost all mining companies operate informally here. Safety regulations are non-existent, so miners constantly risk their lives. Accidents are common. Gold extraction uses outdated methods, with precious metals being extracted from ore using mercury, which has contaminated the local land, water, and air with this toxic metal. This leads to numerous illnesses caused by mercury poisoning. As a result of oxygen deprivation, mercury poisoning, and harsh living and working conditions, the average life expectancy here is just 50 years, 20 years below the national average. The situation is made worse by rampant crime. While there is a police presence, officers only come here on short rotations. The main pastime of locals is drinking. Prostitution is widespread, even among minors. It's best not to venture into brothels and clubs, as they are filled with drunk social outcasts spending their hard-earned money from the mines. All this has led to high rates of sexually transmitted diseases in the city, including HIV. From the outside, the city seems quite atmospheric, but once you enter, the disappointment is overwhelming. People live in squalid shacks covered with metal sheets, scattered across all the slopes. If you stray even slightly from the main streets, you'll find garbage everywhere. A foul odor can hit you in any part of the city. The sewer system is poorly developed, often leading to waste being dumped directly onto the streets. Most buildings are unheated, but there is electricity, and some even have internet access. According to doctors, about 30 people die annually in mining accidents, while another 70 die due to crime. The city's mercury pollution and high altitude cause blood clots, kidney failure, nervous system problems, and more. Spend a few years here, and chronic diseases are almost guaranteed. Many women suffer from urinary tract infections due to sewage issues. By the way, the $200 salary I mentioned earlier isn't available to everyone here. Many earn nothing at all because of a peculiar system where workers labor for free for a month, after which the company allows them to take as much ore as they can carry. The chances that the rocks a worker carries contain gold are low. It's even harder for them to sell what they find at a fair price, as local buyers drive prices down as much as possible. While the men of the city toil in the mines, their wives sift through processed ore hoping to find even a speck of gold missed by the mining company. Often, children are involved in this labor too. In the past, children even worked in the mines. Today, the mines in the city supposedly produce about 10 tons of gold annually, but these figures are hard to trust due to a thriving black market. The government turns a blind eye to the lawlessness and anarchy here. The city is ruled by mining companies that don't particularly care about improving miners' working conditions or urban life. I think you now understand why this city is called Hell on Earth. Despite the hopelessness in the city, there is no shortage of people willing to live and work here, as it may be their only chance to earn some substantial money. Let's move on to our next unusual settlement. Here is Yanjin, the narrowest city in the world. Aerial shots of this city went viral online recently, and some people even thought they were CGI. It's easy to wonder why anyone would choose to live in such a narrow space, especially when there are so many other places to live in China. But then again, why not live in such a unique and atmospheric place? It almost feels like something out of a fantasy novel. The city can't expand sideways because it's nestled right between mountains. At its narrowest point, Yanjin is only 30 meters wide, and even at its widest, it's only about 300 meters. Besides being incredibly narrow, the city has another interesting feature. Since land is so precious here, many apartment buildings are built right on the riverbank. They're constructed on tall, thin stilts to protect them from potential flooding if the water level rises. Yanjin is located in China's Yunnan province, surrounded by steep mountains, and about 40,000 people call it home. The city has a well-developed infrastructure, including roads and a 2-kilometer tunnel carved through the mountains. Tourism also plays a role in the local economy, with people coming to see the surreal views that look like they belong in another world. Not many tourists visited in the past, but online promotion has really helped to boost that. Interestingly, there aren't many bridges here, even though you'd think a city like this would need them. The climate is mild, with warm temperatures almost year-round, no harsh winters, and frequent rainfall. This makes it ideal for growing rice, which many locals do. Others work on the railway or in the tourism industry. Despite this, Yanjin isn't considered a wealthy city, mainly because it's hard to get to, even with the railway, and not many new people move here permanently. They often can't see the appeal of living in such a confined and potentially dangerous place, especially because of the flooding. Sadly, people have lost their lives in floods here. During a flood, the river rises so high that it can inundate not just the lower floors, and the stilts on which the houses stand not only fail to save them, but can also collapse. But the people who were born and raised here don't plan on leaving. Their families have lived here for hundreds of years, and they're used to it. Life in the narrowest city in the world might not be the most convenient, but it's definitely got a unique atmosphere. The views are breathtaking, and you can only hope that this remarkable place won't be forgotten over time. Next up, we're heading to another Chinese city, Chongqing. It's often called the largest metropolis in the world that nobody's ever heard of, and honestly, there's some truth to that. Despite being one of the biggest urban areas on the planet, it's surprisingly unknown outside of China. Although you might have seen clips of it online, and especially those amazing shots of trains passing through buildings, those have become pretty famous. And that's not all. Chongqing also boasts one of the most complex transportation systems in the world. This city is expanding at an incredible rate, with construction happening practically everywhere you look. The entire metropolitan area is about the size of Austria. Old neighborhoods are rapidly making way for new structures, sometimes disappearing in a matter of days. With its network of multi-level roads and countless skyscrapers, Chongqing looks like a city from the future. From some angles, it even feels like something straight out of a cyberpunk movie. While Hollywood is busy making blockbusters about futuristic cities, the Chinese are actually building them right now. One of Chongqing's most striking features is where two rivers of different colors meet. You can often see a clear line where the waters blend, and spanning these rivers are an unbelievable number of massive bridges, including the longest arch bridge in the world. In any other city, that bridge would be a major landmark, but here you might not even notice them amidst everything else. The Chongqing Metro is a whole other story. With over 200 stations, it's one of the largest in the world. And as I mentioned earlier, one of those stations is actually inside a residential building, occupying the 6th to 8th floors. Monorail trains run right through the building, but apparently it doesn't bother the residents because they used special noise-reducing materials during construction. They built this cyberpunk-style station because space is so limited in this densely populated part of the city. And speaking of limited space, you'll find some seriously cool cyberpunk-style parking garages here too. Remember that awesome parking garage in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift? Well, Chongqing takes it to the next level. Imagine this. You drive onto a platform, get out of your car, and then the platform lifts your car up at an angle and slides it into its spot. In 2019, they even built an automated parking tower that holds 397 cars. You can park your car in just a minute by scanning a QR code. road. The road system here is also incredibly well designed. Even though it's one of the most complex in the world with 20 overpasses on 5 levels, it's surprisingly easy to navigate. And even if you do take a wrong turn, you'll usually find your way back within a kilometer or so. Chongqing's population is incredibly large. Officially, it was over 32 million people according to the 2009 census, but rough estimates put the current population closer to 40 million. That's more than the entire population of Canada. The city is absolutely buzzing with life. The same cannot be said about the next city, Colma, located in the USA near San Francisco. It's one of the most unusual places in the world because a staggering 73% of its territory is dedicated to cemeteries. For every 1,000 deceased people, there's only one living resident. That's not an exaggeration. Everywhere you look, you see gravestones. It's no wonder it's often called the City of the Dead. Tombstones are everywhere. In total, about 1.5 million people are buried here. Naturally, this city is quiet and peaceful. That's why another name for this city is the City of Silence. The reason for so many burials is simple. Burying people within San Francisco became too expensive, and eventually, the city banned it. So, about 100 years ago, 150,000 bodies were moved from San Francisco cemeteries and reburied here. Since then, many more people from San Francisco have been laid to rest in Colma. The unique atmosphere makes it a popular filming location. Today, Colma has around 1,500 residents above ground and 1.5 million below. But if you want to see a real underground city where people actually live,